until Saudi Arabia allows them to build a temple or a church. And the third question is the recent acts on terrorism being used by Congressperson in North Carolina for the Victim Mosque, and also the one we just touched, Sharon Angles. So what as a group you have done?
Sure. These are some unfortunate incidents where some members of Congress or some public figures, some of them not members of Congress, but they're either elected officials or voices in the conservative movement, have done things like question Muslim interns, or have said we should not be able to build Islamic centers until there are churches and synagogues allowed to be built in Saudi Arabia, and these types of comments. I did a couple things. First, I had gone out in the media to condemn those statements publicly. And I should also point out that while I have done that publicly, many conservatives, fellow conservatives, have supported me in that. So, I'm very careful, and we talked a little bit about this last night after Isha prayer, that we should be careful not to paint any group with a broad brush. We as Muslims are asking our fellow Americans not to judge us by the actions of a few, whether it's 9/11 hijackers or the bomber at Times Square or whatever. Likewise, I caution anybody, including the Muslim community, not to paint any movement, whether it's the conservative movement or the Tea Party guys or whomever, with one broad brush. Because they are made up of individuals, and individuals say silly things, and say wrong-headed things, and say hateful things, but that does not necessarily represent the entire group. So, back to your question, on that intern incident, I was on MSNB a couple times, SMAC a couple times, condemning that. I talked to several of those members of Congress personally. I talked to their staff personally. I'm continuing to talk to them. Some of them have been very receptive and said, you know what, we made a mistake. And some of them have been very stubborn, to be fair. But again, just the same advice I gave you, I gave to myself. I believe in starting that conversation and engaging with them, to talk to them, to give them the right information. And where I can't give the information, to bring other people. So if they're asking questions about Sharia, for example, I'm not qualified to answer that. I say, look, I can get you the person who has a degree from Al-Azhar or wherever to give you these real, don't just listen to somebody giving you some soundbite about, the Sharon Angle or whomever. So that's the process that we're doing. The other thing that we did, particularly after the controversy surrounding the Part 51 issue, was that several Muslim Republicans, and including a couple of Arab Christians, we did a public letter to Republican leadership, warning Republican leadership that we should not sell the Muslim community down the river, as it were. That we should not stoke the fires of religious hatred and misinformation for political purposes. And that letter got a lot of press coverage, and it also got a very positive reaction again from Republicans and conservatives, who said, right on, we support you. We met with leadership in the House and the Senate tell them we want you to be responsible. So if somebody says something like Sharon Angle just said about Sharia and Dearborn and in Texas, that you call her and say this is not right. And you talk to her and really remind her that this is a democracy, that everybody has freedom. And that happened, that issue just happened. Senator Cornyn, who is the NRSC chairman, who's responsible for all the Senate races, 2 days ago we contacted him. We met with him first, and he said, absolutely, I will support you on that. And we said, if somebody does an ad that's anti-Muslim, or if somebody makes a statement, we need your help as a leader to talk to them. And so we have contacted him to talk to Sharon Angle. Literally just happened Friday yesterday, so we'll see what happens on Monday and Tuesday, what the reaction will be. But that is the process. The Republican Party right now is engaged in an election, as is the Democratic Party. And there are a lot of things that are being said because people are grasping for anything that might give them some votes. And what I'm doing is writing and talking to try and remind politicians from both sides of the aisle that we should not demonize any religious community, any faith group, any minority for political gain, whether it's Hispanics or African Americans or Muslims or Arabs or whomever, to make and score political points. You know, I wrote an op-ed just recently for a journal in Princeton where I started out by saying politicians, no offense to our politicians, I said politicians are like raccoons. Both of them are distracted. I know you have a lot of raccoons here in Michigan. I saw one on the side of the road yesterday. Politicians are like raccoons. They get distracted by shiny objects. And right now the shiny object that's distracting some politicians, it's the issue of Islam, it's mosques, it's Sharia, it's these types of things. And some politicians, unfortunately, are getting distracted with the fact that they think that by criticizing Muslims and Islam, they can somehow gain some votes. The last thing I'll say on that is that the proof of the matter is nobody's actually getting even any short-term gain on that. Rick Lazio, former Republican congressman in New York, ran for higher office in New York, opposing the Islamic Center in Lower Manhattan, and didn't get a single vote. And the beautiful thing is, that's not just me, Suhail Khan, saying that, but Laura Rosen in the Politico, which is a big newspaper in Washington, D.C., that people read, she said that. She started her story about Rick Lazio saying, Rick Lazio ran on a campaign opposing the center at Ground Zero and didn't get a single vote out of it. Likewise, in Tennessee, there were two Republican candidates running, one of them opposing the local mosque in Murfreesboro, and one supporting it. And in the primary, with the hardcore Tea Party voters, Diane Black, the candidate who supported the mosque, has won the primary and will be the next Republican congressman from that district. So there are good stories. There are good stories. Just as was said that when I got the Buckley Award, the hardcore conservatives that gather every year, 10,000 strong, gave me an award for my activism in the conservative movement. And indeed, 4 years ago when I was nominated to be on the ACU board, the American Conservative Union Board, there was a campaign to not only defeat my election, but to actually even get them to pull my nomination, saying Suhail Khan is a member of the Islamic Brotherhood, or he's a terrorist, all these lies. I was the highest vote getter out of the people for that board position by conservatives nationally. Many of them who didn't know me, but they knew my track record and they voted for me. So even, again, the American people are fair-minded people. They need to be given the right information and they will make the right decision. But that's up to us to give that right information.
Thank you. Is there any question on the sister's side? I want to make sure.
Yeah, sisters are quiet. What's going on?
Any questions?
We're pleased you're here.
You got,
Learning a lot from you.
Well,
I was curious.
I'll
about,
do that too. Go ahead.
yeah, I was curious about this. When you go to meet a member of Congress, a politician, I had the understanding that like you explained, the numbers count. And you say this is the numbers under my belt. But if you're a certain, like you're a Democratic organization going to Republican, it would be less effective, right? It's better if you're a PAC or independent PAC.
Well, we shouldn't get caught into the situation where we're trying to show that we can give X amount of money or X amount of votes. When you're meeting with a member of Congress, particularly in their official office, it's not a political meeting. It's about policy. So you're giving the numbers just to give a community profile, just to say this is who we are. We are Muslims, we're Arab Americans, we're African Americans, we're South Asians, we're business owners. You just want to give an idea of who we are. I'll use an analogy. Really, that's kind of like it's like a first date. You're not trying to make the sale on the first date, will you marry me? You're just trying to say, here's who I am. Here's my family. This is what I like. I like, movies and long walks on the beach or whatever it might be. But you're just trying to introduce yourself to say, this is who we are, this is our community. You're not trying to necessarily close the deal right then and there. You're just trying to start a conversation. You want to start a relationship. And you need to also realize that when you're meeting today with Councilmember Dodge, you want to start that relationship because most likely somebody like a council member or a local party official is going to become somebody who's going to stay in the party, stay active in politics. And today they might be a city councilman, tomorrow they might be an assemblyman, and 3 years from now they might be in Congress, right? Barack Obama was a state senator who became a U.S. senator who became the president of the United States. So the people that went to him and began a relationship in Chicago, when he was a state senator, can now say, hey, we have a personal relationship with the President of the United States. So that's what you don't want to always make it strictly political about money or votes or party, Democrat, Republican. Because whether the elected official is a Democrat or a Republican, if you're a constituent, you're a constituent. When somebody comes to talk to Councilmember Dodge, they don't come and say, by the way, I'm a Democrat or a Republican. They just say, I'm a constituent. You're responsible for my neighborhood. I've got a constituent. I want you to listen to my concerns. That's what very basic level it should be.
So we, like your group, like Mahara, I'm sure she's ready to go next to Congressman, but saying we'll follow her because she has and we know she cares about an issue a lot. So if she invites us, we'll all go. So is that like a loose leadership that we can define?
Well, it
Anybody
depends.
can go?
It depends. Well, let's say it depends what the meeting is. So let's say you're going on behalf of CAIR.